Hello, and welcome to another Wednesday English live stream. It's really good to be here with you. And with me again is Lynn, my friend on the other end from putitlikethis.com. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm fine, Craig. I'm so glad that you're back to introducing the show because I made a mess of it last week
Yeah, you
or the
you
week before. I
really
haven't got the elan to be able to do it as well as
you
you.
did fantastic helping me when I was a bit under the weather last week. I was under the weather. I wasn't feeling very well, and Lynn was a star. She really helped to get the live stream going and
No, but you
really gave
definitely
me
do the better introduction, Craig. Well done.
thank you. Well, thank you for joining us. People will be coming in the chat very, very soon. So while we're waiting for people to join us, I want to thank you if you're watching the replay. So if you're watching this after the fact, after we've been live, we hope you'll find today's English stream useful. And if you don't know who we are, Lynn, would you like to tell everybody
Sure, of
where you're
course.
from?
So my name is Lynn. I'm from putitlikethis.com. And I'm an online teacher and I make tailor-made courses for people. It doesn't matter what your aim is. Most of the aims I can cover. So if you need to use your English for business, or if you're a teacher, or if you're preparing for an exam, then I take your specific objectives and then I'll build a course to help you fulfill your objectives. If you're interested, go to putitlikethis.com and you can get lots more information there about the kind of courses I do.
Fantastic. And I'm Craig from mansioningles.com, where you can study English for free, lots of courses, materials, and a newsletter that's free twice a month with different levels of exercises and lots of information to help you improve your English. We also have a podcast at inglespodcast.com. That's every week. So lots of stuff over there and on Mansion Ingles for you to use and improve your English for no money. Hello to Isma, who's joining us live. Good to see you here. Hi,
Hi,
Caroline.
Isma.
Good to see
Caroline
you.
as well. Mm-hmm.
Gemma. Hi.
Hello.
And Leandro from
Leandro.
Argentina. Lovely
Okay.
to have you here as well.
All
So
right.
last time we spoke, Lynn, we
Mm-hmm.
did a live stream about football, which you
Mm-hmm.
can see on your YouTube channel and on the Mansion English YouTube channel if you missed it. Have you been
Uh,
following the football?
oh, I have. And of course, it was very sad for us. Well, I'm not Spanish, I'm English, but I still feel Spanish. So it was a bit of a sad night last night. But
Yeah.
it's football, it's a game, and it was very exciting. It was a little bit disappointing, but I told everybody last time that I'm a fair weather supporter. So when one team gets knocked out, I just have to find someone else to support. Of course, the one that I've got left in, because I was for England, Germany, and Spain, the one I've got left in is England. But if they get knocked out, I've got other contenders. So it's all right. I thought I quite liked Morocco because they were like, they've never won a World Cup before. So
No,
that would be
no,
quite
and
nice if they won as well, I think.
yeah, they were so excited. And yeah, I really, really suffered watching that game.
It was
And
hot. It was very tense, wasn't it, with the penalties?
I don't think I need that kind of stress in my life at my age. So I might not watch any more games. We'll see. I don't know. But
Oh,
we're not
wow.
talking about football today. What are we
No,
talking
we're
about
not.
today?
Well, we're talking about the TV today and watching the box. We often use the word the box for the television, although, of course,
Oops.
it doesn't look like a box anymore, does it? Because it's all flat screens now. But
Yeah.
when we were young, it was a real box. And we used to call the TV the box. So tonight we're talking about watching the box, TV shows, series, and streaming services. Do you watch the box, Craig?
I watch. Well, it's interesting because when you talk about screens, we're looking at screens now. And when we work, because Lynn and I both work at home, we teach online. So we're constantly in front of a screen. But I think it's nice to think about a sit forward experience with a screen, which is what this is, and what when you work is like. You're sitting forward, which is not really comfortable. And then there's the sit back experience when you're relaxing, and that's what we're talking about today. Watching it could be on a it could be on a big TV plasma screen, it could be on a mobile phone, it could be on a tablet. But if you're watching a screen in a relaxing, sitting back on the sofa, then that's what we're talking about. So yeah, I do that to relax. So I go from one screen to another screen when I want to chill out and relax
So
after work.
how did you say that? A sit forward
Sit forward
experience
or sit back
or sit back
experience.
experience?
They're
It would
very
be
different if you think
interesting.
about it.
It is. I'm definitely sitting forward now. In actual fact, I have a wobble stool, so my stool can wobble. It's good for my back. And I am sitting forward right now because I am very concentrated and I'm looking at my notes. I have little notes here to help me. But it would be interesting to know with our listeners, actually, when you watch this live stream show, are you sitting back or are you sitting forward? That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, can you write in the chat? So, where
Yeah.
do you like to watch your entertainment? And what do you like to watch? Tell us if you like to watch TV series or films or YouTube or shorts or
Uh,
TikTok. What kind of things do you like to watch when you're
no,
relaxing?
but I want to know when you're watching us right now as well. Can you also tell us?
Oh, yeah,
Are you watching us sitting forward or are you consuming us? Are you laying back and watching us? Are you sitting back or
interesting.
sitting forward? Because when I teach online, obviously I'm very engaged and my students usually because it's one-to-one, they are also very engaged. So they're not interacting with me on the screen like a television experience at all. Like we're both sitting forward and we're both
Hmm.
very engaged in what we're doing. But it's I'm very curious to know what Hema and Caroline and Isma and Leandro and Paloma, are you sitting back or are you engaged with us? And I'm sure it's a little bit different as well if you watch the class after on our YouTube channels as well. That might be a different experience. I don't know.
I think if people are actually writing in the chat, I
Hmm.
think they're probably sitting forward or leaning forward because you need a keyboard,
Yeah,
probably.
that's true.
But there are people watching who never write in the chat, and maybe they're sitting back, laying maybe in bed, I don't know, on the sofa, watching us that way. So let us know. We'd be interested to know how you're watching.
Yeah,
Um,
Caroline's told us already. She says, today I'm sitting forward at my desk so that it's easier to write something down. Yeah, because
yeah.
you're trying to learn English, so you're really engaged in it, aren't you? Uh-huh. Mhm.
What do you like to
Interesting.
watch, Lynn, when you have your sit back experience? Do you watch a lot of screens and
Uh-huh.
consume content in the evening?
Yes, because really the topic of today's class is the sitting back experience, isn't it? As you said. So yeah, I think I watch less. Um, I have a sit back experience less often than I used to in the past. When I was younger, I used to watch an awful lot of television, especially when I was a teenager, for example. But then when I went to university, we couldn't afford to have a television. It was a long time ago. We couldn't afford to have a television. And so for 4 years, when I studied at university, I didn't have a television. And I was astonished at how easy it was to live without a television and how nice it was to live without a television.
Mhm.
And so for many years after leaving university, I didn't have a television. And then in my 30s, I got another television and I started to watch television. And of course, ever since then, I've had a television. And in the evening, I watch television. I don't watch television during the day, but after dinner, I sit down and with my family, and we usually watch about an hour or a couple of hours before we go to bed. And sometimes on a Sunday afternoon, I watch a little bit of television. What about you, Craig?
I'm trying to watch less, but I do watch a lot. I do watch too much, maybe 2 or 3 hours a night, which
Mhm.
is a lot. Um,
Mhm.
Sometimes less, it depends. If I'm working late, if I have a lot of work, I'll watch maybe an hour just to relax. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm trying to cut down on the amount of TV I watch. So to cut down on, that phrasal verb means to reduce the
Mhm.
amount of viewing time. Hema says she's sitting on the sofa. Now, if
All
you're
right,
talking
maybe.
about a habit, Hema, you'd
Uh-huh.
probably use the present simple. So
Yeah,
I
that's true.
sit on the sofa. I usually sit on the sofa after dinner. I often sit on the sofa after dinner. But maybe you're sitting on the sofa now, then you would
Mhm.
use the present continuous.
And then
Maria Clara
uh-huh.
says YouTube videos on her phone. Yeah, completely different experience, isn't it, on the phone?
Mhm. On the phone. Do you watch things on your phone, Craig?
Sometimes, but not to relax. It's more if I want to know how to do something. If I'm
Mhm.
working, perhaps I might go to YouTube on my phone. How do I do this? And then YouTube has so many how-to videos that it really helps me during the day, especially with technology, to know
Mhm.
how to do something. So
Yeah.
I'll use it as a reference more than a relaxing,
Yes. Uh-huh.
de-stressing experience.
Uh-huh. Because it's a little bit small, isn't it, to have a relaxing enjoyment of the phone. Well, it is for me, but I do know that my daughters, they do watch a lot of entertaining things on their phone. They do watch a lot of YouTube videos on their phone. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a generational thing as well, different
Uh-huh.
generations. A lot
Yeah.
more yo a lot of younger people, they don't watch television. It's YouTube, it's,
Uh-huh.
maybe gaming channels, Twitch, for example, or other
Mhm.
channels that they can, um, chat together with people of their age.
Mhm. It's interesting that because I know that sometimes when I do exams, a very common question in an oral exam is, when do you watch TV? And I've noticed, I don't know about you, Craig, but recently more and more young people, they say, "Oh, I don't watch TV."
Yep, yep.
And at first I was quite shocked. Oh, you don't watch TV, but they do watch. They watch YouTube, but they don't regard YouTube and streaming services like Netflix, for example, they don't regard that as television. And
Mhm.
it's quite right, actually. It's not television, is it? But sometimes it comes through the same machine, really,
Yeah, I
doesn't
think
it?
it's a different generation, and we grew up with television. I mean, we grew up when you had to make sure you looked at the time to see your favorite program. Maybe you
Hmm.
waited all week to see your favorite program at the weekend. Now it's video on demand. Platforms like
Hmm.
Netflix, you decide when you want to watch it, and then you can binge watch, which we'll show you in a minute that expression if you don't know it. We can
Hmm.
watch things all together because it's video on demand. You don't have to wait until the program appears on your TV.
Hmm.
Hemant says, the
Uh,
rest of the day I have the television on, but I don't watch it. I listen to it while I
mhm.
do things around the house instead. The difference, Hema, is if you hear it, you're not really doing it deliberately. You're not paying attention. Maybe you hear a noise, there's a noise in the street, and you hear something. But if you listen, you're deliberately paying attention to it,
Mhm.
listening to music, listening to a podcast, or listening to the TV.
But maybe she isn't listening to it. That's the point. Because I
Yeah.
know it's true, Hema, that I know people who have, for example, a television in the kitchen and they have the television on all the time, but they're not watching it or listening to it. Uh-huh. It's
Yeah.
the same like in cafes and bars in Spain. You often see every cafe and bar has a television and it's on, but nobody is listening to it and nobody is watching it.
Mhm.
So in that sense, you could say you hear it. Yeah, but you hear
Right.
the traffic as well. Uh-huh. So
Absolutely.
maybe she wanted to use that properly. I don't know.
Hi, Carlos from Colombia. Thanks for joining. So, shall we look at
Hi,
some
Carlos.
vocabulary?
Yes, let's look at some vocabulary.
Vocabulary, series,
Hmm.
episode, season. That's quite confusing because in Spanish, if you're a Spanish speaker and you say, and I always get confused with this, a series, un series in Spanish is it the same? It is the same, isn't it? Series, a TV series.
Series.
It's season that confuses me. Yeah, because season in Spanish is temporada. Yeah. So
Ajá,
a
es
season will
temporada.
be
Ajá.
more than one episode together is a season. So episode is the smaller thing. It's just one half an hour or 1 hour show. And
Mhm.
then several episodes is a season.
Mhm.
And sometimes you have multiple seasons in a series.
Exactly. So series is really the name for the show. If you like. Series is the name for the show that is broadcast in separate sessions, right? So you have a movie which is broadcast in one sitting, but a series is a show that is broadcast in individual sittings. Each
Exactly.
sitting is called an episode, and sometimes groups of episodes come out one year, and then maybe another group will come out the following year, and then they're called seasons. Mhm.
For example, one of my favorite TV series what was, I think it's stopped now, The Walking Dead, about the
Oh,
zombies.
yeah.
And the first few seasons were
Mhm.
really good. And I think they
Mhm.
made 11 series in total, or maybe 12. But the last
11
few
seasons.
el- 11 seasons, thank you. It's confusing, isn't it? 11, thank you, 11 seasons. And the last few seasons were really not very good, in my
Uh-huh.
opinion. But I really enjoyed the first few seasons.
I
Yeah.
think that happens to many series nowadays, because especially with the companies like HBO and Netflix and Amazon, the streaming services, they try to milk the series for all their worth.
Money, money, money.
Money, money, money. So we use that metaphor like milking a cow. When you milk a series for as much as you possibly can, you produce many, many seasons. And I think the experience that Craig had, that the later seasons are terrible, is very common, I think.
Yeah. I'm just putting that in the chat to
Uh-huh.
milk something for more money.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
To milk something for more money.
And of course, you have different genres in video content. You can have a drama series. There's a period drama, which tends to be historical, something like Downton Abbey, for example. Who done it? Murder mysteries like Agatha Christie. Someone gets murdered. Who did the murder is who done it or who did
Who?
it.
Uh-huh.
True crime, detective series. That's quite
What is
self-explanatory.
true crime? True crime, like a real story, is it? Or you mean
Yeah, but I think they say these days based on real events, which
okay.
means
Mhm.
it's similar to what really happened, but maybe not 100% factual.
Mhm. Okay. Detective series then, they're very
Yeah.
common. Sitcom, which is short for, it's like who done it. Who done it is short for who has done it, and they make it into a word and change the spelling. And sitcom is from situation comedy. Nobody says that. They say sitcom. And a sitcom is like a comedy series around a specific situation. So the really common one was Friends. Did you watch Friends?
I was never a fan of Friends. I've watched a few
Really?
episodes, but no,
Uh-huh.
I didn't I wasn't a fan. I couldn't get into it.
You couldn't get into it. Well, I never watched it when it actually came out. but I watched it like 15 years later with with my daughters, and we loved it. I loved
Yeah.
it. I thought it was really funny. And then there are reality series,
Hmm.
where these are series, but they're based, or they're supposed to be based on on just filming reality. So the most famous one is Big Brother, isn't it? I think that was the first reality series that they had, where they had these people and then they put them in a house and they just film every day what people are doing.
And there was a recent one that was, my sister loved it. It was I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here,
Mm-hmm.
where a famous or infamous British politician went to take part in this TV series. I think it was in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and they paid him a lot of money. And he's a serving politician in the British government. So don't ask me why it's okay for somebody receiving taxpayers' money to go and make a TV show in Australia. I don't understand it whatsoever.
I don't think anybody understood that. It was a scandal. Mhm.
Anyway, adventure is another genre, fantasy,
Mhm.
like Star Wars, that kind of thing. Well, it's more sci-fi, isn't it? Science fiction is
Mhm.
abbreviated to sci-fi. And then, of course, documentary are factual
Mhm.
programs like nature programs, for
Mhm.
example.
And sometimes they shorten the word documentary and they say docu series.
Hmm.
So I've seen that as well, a docu series. Mhm. Now we've got some yeah, go ahead.
Gemma saying Downton Abbey is one of my favorites. Did you see
Mine
the
too.
film, Gemma? It was released recently on Movie Star. If you get Movie Star, you can see the latest Downton Abbey film. I quite
Mhm.
like Downton Abbey.
I like the
It's
series,
okay.
but I hate the films. I think the
Why?
films, because the films are so badly. The storylines they have in the films are terrible. Whereas in the series, I thought they had much better drama storylines. The plots were better, but the films are just, again, it was like milking the thing. It was just
Hmm.
they wanted to have this extravaganza. I think people like Downton Abbey because of the costumes and the period and the
The class
filming.
differences, the British
Exactly.
class.
And so for me, the films are just like 1.5 hours of lots of different costumes,
Yeah.
but it hasn't really got a really good storyline to it. But I think the series have very good storylines, or better
Yeah.
storylines, I
That's a
thought.
that's a
Uh-huh.
good point. On the other
Uh-huh.
side of the coin, on the other hand, I recently watched This England about the British Parliament and the way the government, the way they dealt with the coronavirus pandemic, and
Mhm.
Boris Johnson specifically. And that was 6 1-hour episodes. It
What's
could
that
have
called? Is that a docu
This
series, is it?
England.
This England.
Yes, This
Uh-huh.
England. Kenneth Branagh is
Oh,
Boris
uh-huh.
Johnson. And
Oh,
it could have been a 1.5 hour film because they
really?
just kept showing more people being sick, more people in hospital, different case studies, and
Oh
it was the
dear.
same thing over and over again. And it
Mhm.
was interesting to see in one sort of series the way everything panned out, the way everything happened, but it could have been a lot shorter.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
that same expression that Lynn introduced before, they milked the story to
Mhm.
make more content. So
Mhm.
instead of 1.5 hours, it became 6 hours.
Yeah, which is a
It's
pity,
which
isn't
is a
it?
pity.
Mhm.
Um,
If we can, sorry, just
The Office,
well,
sorry.
just I think Caroline, a few comments before, she had a question about whether series is the plural of series. Yes.
Yes, it
Yes,
is.
we don't like to say serieses, right? So series, one series, two series, no problem.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's the same word,
Hmm.
Caroline.
Okay.
Um, yes, The Office. I like The Office, but the British Office. So, Maria Clara, please clarify which Office you prefer, because the American Office, I think, is different in its sense of humor.
It is,
to
but
the
I have to
British
say,
office.
I loved the British Office, but
Hmm.
when I started watching the American Office, I'm a convert. The
Yeah.
American Office is so funny. Yeah. And I loved the British Office, which was the first one, and the Americans copied it. It was the same guy, wasn't it? Was it Ricky Gervais?
Ricky
Yeah,
Gervais. Yeah.
Ricky Gervais, and he
Yeah.
made the one in the American one. But the American actors are just brilliant in it. I love the Office. But really, it's a sitcom. It is, isn't it? Yeah,
Also,
definitely.
Daniel from My Fluent Podcast. Hi, Daniel. Good to see you here.
Hi.
He also votes for The Office, the
Oh,
mockumentary.
you
But which
call it a mockumentary? That's interesting. I've
mockumentary?
never heard that before. Have
Hmm.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard that expression. So, which one, Daniel? Which one is your favorite? The British version or the
and the
American
American.
copy?
And maybe we can just tell people the mockumentary, that's another word that's been made to describe TVs. And of course, we've got umentary, which comes from documentary. But instead of documentary, they're using the word mock. And the word mock means to make fun of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're mocking me. So they've
Or
made a.
pretend. It could be pretend, as in
It
a
could
mock
be
exam
pretend.
or a mock
Exactly.
bullfight, for
Yes,
example.
that's right. Sometimes it's pretend as well. So it's not a documentary, but a mockumentary.
Yeah,
You
Daniel
like
likes
the
both the
Britain
British and the American.
and
Okay.
the American.
And another recommendation from Eva, Secret City. I have not heard of that. Have you?
Oh, no, I haven't. But Eva is saying there, Eva, you're saying it is very entertainment. I'm not sure where you're from. I think you need the word that word doesn't exist in English. You need to say entertaining. Entertaining. Craig, are you writing it in the
I
chat?
am.
Yeah,
That's the
perfect. Uh-huh.
active adjective. If it is
Uh-huh.
entertaining, you are entertained by the series.
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh. Oh, it's a series from Australia, she says. Wow.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well,
I
I'm
will
going
look
to
for
take
it.
notes on this because I need
Yeah.
some good suggestions
Put
as
your
well.
recommendations in the chat. It will be lovely to get some
Uh-huh.
more recommendations from you.
Yeah. I think Hema was mentioning one as well a little bit back. 1899, I think you were saying.
1899. Just a second.
Uh-huh.
Let me try and find it. Um,
Hema
on
mentioned it.
Netflix.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Do you have Netflix? That's a very popular platform, Lynn.
Yes, I do. We have Netflix, we have everything. We have HBO and we we have Amazon Prime.
We have
So
Amazon
you
Prime.
wouldn't think that I only watch 1 hour a day, would you?
What I do with Netflix, because it's very, very easy with these streaming services to pay for a month and then leave.
Oh,
So I don't pay monthly for all of the year. I
mhm.
wait a few months until they've put lots of good content and films and documentaries and TV series. And then I pay for 1 month or 2 months and I watch what's
Then you watch.
good. Because
Mhm.
what I find with these platforms is that you watch the good stuff and then you watch rubbish, you watch
Yeah.
anything just to
Mhm.
pass the time. And I don't like
Mhm.
that. So I unsubscribe and then I wait a few months and then resubscribe again to watch
Mhm.
new stuff.
Mhm.
Should we look at some more vocabulary?
Yes, let's have a little look at more vocabulary then.
Vegetables, potatoes. What's potatoes doing in a live stream about TV?
Yeah. Does anybody know what a couch potato is?
I bet Daniel knows what a couch potato is.
Yeah.
What's a couch potato, Daniel?
We'll wait
He'll
for
tell
him
us.
to to reply to that. So this was in relation, I think, with where do you watch your television or your entertainment or your sit back experience, as you call them. Do you watch them in bed, on the sofa with your feet up? Do you
Mhm.
watch them on the commute to work? The commute, remember that verb, which is when you travel a distance, the same distance repeatedly. And for example, if you live away from half an hour away from your place of work, you commute every day. And some people watch a lot of shows on the commute. I've seen it on the metro here. I see people with headsets and their mobile phones or their tablets, and they're actually watching shows while they're
Mhm.
on public transport.
Yep. You see that on planes as well.
Yeah. During meal
Alex
times.
Alex said, "Call me a weirdo." You're a weirdo. But I love the Antiques Roadshow. Now, the
Yeah,
Antiques Roadshow,
that's a
that's
great
an
show. I like that too.
do you like it? Well, explain what it is, because maybe some people don't know what that
Yeah.
is. I hate it. I think it's so
Did you hate
boring.
it?
Yeah, it's so boring. It's like watching paint dry.
I think it's actually quite good if you want to learn English, actually, because the Antiques Roadshow is well, it's a kind of reality show in a sense, because this is a group of specialists in antiques, and they travel with the BBC to a different place every week. So they might go to one small village and they set up their operation in, I don't know, a sports hall or something. And then people in the area, if they think they have something at home that is very old and they want to know more about it, they go on the day that the BBC is there with all these experts, and they stand in very long queues and they show their antique object to a specialist, and the specialist will give them advice about what he knows about the object. And the real thing that people want to know is, how much is it worth? That's what people really want to know, isn't it? And then the BBC, so this is a real event. And then the BBC, of course, they're filming and they take out the best conversations and then they make this show, which is this series, the Antiques Roadshow. So you see an episode and you'll see certain conversations that people, members of the public, are having with an expert about an object that they have brought from home. And then you find out things like their grandmother has left them a painting and the painting is suddenly worth £50,000. And then the person in the queue says, "Oh, really? I didn't know that." And I think sometimes people did know that, but and sometimes they get told, what you've got there, it's a fake, which is not real. And they'll say, "Really? It's a fake? I paid so much money for this." And they say, no, it's a fake. And you can see it's a fake because of this and that. So that's the entertainment value. But I think it's very good for people learning English, because you will be able to listen to people with all different kinds of accents. And they are not people like Craig and I who speak clearly and slowly. For people
Most
who
of the
want,
time.
most of the time, for people who really want to learn English, if you really want to have the experience of being thrown in at the deep end with English accents, the Antiques Roadshow is the place to go, I think. Would you
And there's
agree,
and
Alex?
and there's queuing, which is a famous British pastime. So lots of queuing in the
Lots of
Antiques
queuing.
Roadshow as well. So question coming from Daniel for you, Lynn. Are you a movie buff or a series buff?
Oh, I'm not a buff at all. Not in movies and not in series, I'm afraid. I'm not a culture vulture. Do you know that one?
A
Do you know that
culture
one, Daniel?
vulture.
I'm not a culture vulture, really. I have friends, and when we used to go to pub quizzes, whenever there were questions about culture or movies or series, I was not the very strong one in the team. My strength is geography. I used to get the geography questions. I'm a geography buff.
So
But I'm not a movie buff or a series buff.
do you like
Buff
watching the
is an expert, for if anybody
oh,
doesn't know.
sorry, yeah,
Mhm.
an expert. Do you like watching the travel series then? You know, the travel programs?
No,
No?
I don't like travel programs. No. Do
Okay.
you?
Sometimes, yeah. If I'm interested in the place that they're talking about, then yeah. Um,
Mhm.
and also nature programs that show parts of the world I'd love to visit and the animals that live there, and David
Mhm.
Attenborough kind of programs I like very much.
I like those. I like the nature documentaries. I do like those, like nature documentaries. Um, but I'm not very keen on travel shows. They
Mhm.
show too much food for me. They're all. I don't like cooking shows either. Do you like cooking shows?
I don't, but my wife loves them. She's
Oh, I
constantly watching
hate it.
cooking shows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hate seeing. No, I like to be there and eat it. I don't like
Yeah.
watching it on the television. It makes me hungry.
Another recommendation has come in from Gemma,
Hmm.
Sandman, which is another one I've never heard of. It sounds
Oh.
like a superhero kind of action adventure, is it?
Hmm. Maybe
What's it
you can
about,
tell us what
Gemma?
it's about, Hema. Yeah.
What
Uh-huh.
genre is it? What kind of
Uh-huh.
series is it? And Natty says the last one she watched is This England. Did you enjoy it, Natty? I thought it was much too long. It was interesting to go back and see what happened in England during the pandemic, but it was a bit depressing and it brought lots of bad memories back for me. So it wasn't really um, that fantastic. But Kenneth Branagh is an incredible actor. So I'll watch anything that he's in because I think he's wonderful.
Hmm.
Um,
I think everybody's having a sit forward experience. We've never had so many comments in the chat. I
yeah,
can't
this is.
keep up with them. Everybody's telling us what they keep writing, keep writing. It's great.
Well, we'll show you
Can
some more vocabulary while we're waiting for your comments.
Mhm.
To get
All right.
into a show, yeah, if you find it difficult to get engaged or involved in a film or a show, then you can say you can't get into it. So you can't
Mm-hmm.
really get involved. It doesn't take you on a journey.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we spoke about Friends before, and Lynn really got into it with her daughters when they watched it together. But I tried, I watched one or two or three or four episodes, but I couldn't get into it. So
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't hooked. What does hooked mean?
Hooked is means when you're addicted to it. So you can't stop watching it because you're totally hooked. You're thinking about it all the time and you have to see the next episode. Hmm.
And the preposition is on. So you're hooked on romance or you're hooked on comedy series, you're hooked on The Office, for example.
Hmm. And
It
then
didn't do it
it
for me.
just didn't do it for me. That means that you didn't like it. It didn't make you, you weren't impressed, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
it didn't
weren't impressed
didn't
at all.
excite you.
Hmm.
It didn't float your boat is another one you could use.
Float your boat. Goodness me, we're killing them with all these expressions. Float your boat. Put that in. Put that in the thing. I'm just going to do a little aside before we go on. Maria Clara is asking, what does couch potato mean? Because nobody told us what couch potato meant.
We
And
didn't explain it, did
and we
we?
didn't explain it. Thanks, Maria. So a couch potato is like a potato can't walk, can it? So we've got this image that you're just sitting on the couch like a potato, totally not animated, not moving
Eating
anywhere,
crisps,
eating crisps and
potato
chips
crisps.
and yeah. And all you do is watch TV from morning till night. That
Yeah.
is a couch potato. Somebody who never gets off the couch. The couch is another word for sofa, if you didn't know, because probably Spanish speakers know the word sofa. A sofa in English too, but another word for sofa is couch. Mhm.
Jose Antonio, well done for practicing the vocabulary that we're introducing. I'm totally hooked on Suits on Netflix. Suits is
That's
about
got
lawyers.
That's got Meghan Markle in it, hasn't it?
I don't know if she's in it now. She was in it at the beginning before
Ah,
she
okay, I've never
became
seen it.
royalty.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know if she's still in it. But yeah, Meghan Markle was in the first
Have
few
you seen it, Craig?
series. I
Would you
haven't, no.
recommend it? No? I
I'm
haven't seen it either.
I find it hard to get into some American TV series like
Mhm.
CSI or Suits, for example, about a lot of American culture. So
Mhm.
it's difficult for me to get into those kind of series. But I've
Mhm.
heard some people say it's very, very good,
Mhm.
but I haven't tried it. Yango, we're talking about films in general, TV series, and we're looking at some vocabulary connected to watching video content online or on your TV, etc.
Mhm. I think you need to go to the one that was just up. We
We
finished
didn't
that one,
finish
haven't
that
we?
one. We have.
Yeah.
Where are we?
That's it. It just didn't do it for me. You didn't like it.
Mhm.
You can say something is right up my street, which means it's exactly the kind of thing I like. So, for example, Friends, The Office, those kind of sitcoms, they're right up my street. I love those. Uh-huh. There's another one for the people who like The Office. If they like The Office, there is a one. I have to remember the name. It's on Netflix, and it's got the same guy who plays the manager in the American Office, and it's about a space program. And I've forgotten the name. I have to ask somebody. But if anybody knows it, because I could recommend that, it's very funny as well. It's another
Steve Carroll
Steve
is
Carroll, that's right. And he's in another series which they started where he is in, it's another kind of show, a little bit like The Office. And it's very, very funny about Space Force.
Space
Maria's just said
Force.
it, Space Force. It was very
Yeah.
funny. I liked that. It was right up my street as well.
I'll put the link in the chat because I've just found it on my favorite movie site, which is IMDb, Internet Movie Database.
Okay.
If you like movies, that's a very useful site to
Mhm.
have. So I'll put that link if anyone wants to watch Steve Carroll
Okay.
in that
Mhm.
series. Um,
And then to live up to the hype,
to live up to
Craig.
the hype, yeah. If you hype something to the public, then you're really trying to sell it. There's lots of promotion, lots of advertising, put advertisements in the Super Bowl and the World Cup because you want everybody to buy your product or watch your film. So if something disappoints, if something is not as good as the promotion and the excitement before, you say it doesn't live up to the hype. And of course, if something lives up to the hype, then it is every bit as good as you expected.
Mhm.
Imagine, for example, you want to go to Disney World or Disneyland, and you're very excited, and your children are very excited. But when you get there, it's very expensive. You're queuing for hours. The rides are really not very exciting. So it didn't live up to the hype. It
Mhm.
wasn't as good as you expected.
Have you seen any TV shows that didn't live up to the hype that you can think of, Craig?
Yeah, the one that I just mentioned, This England. My
This
sister
England.
said, "Oh,
Uh-huh.
it's fantastic and you have to watch it." And I did watch it because it told a story and I wanted if I start watching something, it's difficult for me to stop in the middle. I have to
Mhm.
finish all of it. So yeah, I watched all of it, and it didn't really, for me, it didn't live up to the hype. It was
Mhm.
far too long,
Mhm.
unnecessarily long. So that's
Mhm.
one example. What about you?
For me, recently, I watched Game of Thrones, and I had watched, or we hadn't watched Game of Thrones when it first came out because it's had several seasons, and so but this year we watched all of the seasons with quite a lot of regularity. So we were watching. I think we binge watched them I'll move on to that last word. To binge watch something is when you watch something like in quick
Continuously.
succession. Yeah. So you don't have a break, basically. And we really binge watched Game of Thrones, all of the episodes, all of the seasons. I mean, we didn't spend 24 hours a day watching it, but we did watch maybe 2 episodes a night, which was a lot because we only normally watch 1 hour of TV a night. So while we were watching Game of Thrones, we were watching 2 or 2.5 hours every night.
Wow.
And then we finished it, and they just recently brought out the new series. And we were all very excited because we enjoyed Game of Thrones, more or less.
Hmm.
You get into it. At the beginning, I didn't like it, but then I got quite addicted. I got hooked on it. But when we saw the new series, I have to say, for me, it didn't live up to the hype. It was the same. It was the
Hmm.
same all over again. So I
That
was a
was
bit
series 7,
disappointed.
I think. Was it series
Hmm.
7 was the last
I'm
one?
not sure, but
Yeah.
it was a bit disappointing for me, I thought. Hmm.
And what some TV series like to do at the end of each season or at the end of each episode, they like to make you guess what's going to happen next time, so that you want to watch the next one. So they force you to binge watch to find out what happens next in the future. And that's called a cliffhanger. A cliffhanger. So when they leave you thinking, oh, is he going to die? Is she going to marry him? Are they going to get divorced? What's going to happen? They're teasing you, and that's called a cliffhanger at
Cliffhanger.
the end of a series.
That the word cliffhanger is a very visual image because at the seaside you have when you have the ocean and the beach, and then you have a wall of rock in front of the water, that is called a cliff. And the idea is that you fall off the cliff and you're hanging on the cliff with your fingers, and everybody's thinking, are they going to fall? Are they going to stay? Will they be rescued? So the word cliffhanger is an easy one to remember because it's a very visual word, isn't it?
Like
Cliffhanger.
the old cartoons when the rabbit was hanging on to the end of the cliff. Ah!
Exactly. That's what it is. And so it's like you want to know what's going to happen. Hmm.
Yeah. A
The cliffhanger.
recommendation from, well, Jose Antonio, not exactly a recommendation. He said that Peaky Blinders didn't live up to the hype. I really enjoyed Peaky Blinders, and I recommend it for the variation in accent, because a lot
Hmm.
of series have maybe a neutral accent, a London accent. If you watch Downton Abbey, it has a very upper class received pronunciation accent. And then downstairs, the servants have a very kind of London working class accent. But Peaky Blinders has specific accent from the north of England, from Newcastle. So I
Hmm.
definitely recommend that for varying your listening skills.
Newcastle, no, Craig.
Isn't it Newcastle?
From Birmingham.
Is it? Oh, Birmingham. You're right. Sorry,
I'm from
Birmingham.
near Newcastle.
That's what I was thinking. That's
This
what I
is
was
what
thinking.
happens, everyone. And people from the south, they don't recognize who we
It's
are
all the
from the
same
north.
north of
It's you.
Croydon. When you go north of
Everything. He
Croydon, it's all the
doesn't
same.
recognize all the different accents from the north. I'm from Sunderland, which is near Newcastle, and Peaky Blinders is definitely not Newcastle.
Okay. I
It's
stand
Birmingham.
corrected. I stand corrected. Did you watch Peaky Blinders? Did you
I
enjoy it?
did. I really enjoyed it. But I do have to say, I think it must be very challenging for a non-native speaker to watch.
Yeah.
Even for native speakers from the south, like Craig, they might they might find it difficult with the accents. And I can imagine that for students of English, it could be difficult. You'd probably have to watch with subtitles.
Well,
Mm.
this is a really good opportunity to speak about that, because how should you or how can you watch series and films in English to improve your listening skills? Now, I want to see if Lynn agrees with this, because two possibilities I can think of. You can watch in English with English subtitles or no subtitles if you have a higher level. Obviously, that is better to watch just in English, an original version, without the distraction of reading. Then you're going to improve your listening skills. Now, if it's difficult, like Peaky Blinders, and you can't get your ears around the accent, maybe watch it dubbed in your language first. Make sure you understand the storyline, the plot, what's happening, then watch it a second time only in English. Then you're focusing on the accent and you're focusing on the different nuances of the language, the slang, but you can follow it because you watched it before in your language. What do you think, Lynn?
I disagree a little bit. I think I have a different opinion to you on that one.
Hmm.
I think the best way to improve listening and English generally is to watch in English with English subtitles. And
Even
I
if you can
think
understand
even
what's
if you
going
can
on.
understand it, because what happens is if you can understand it well, you actually don't read very much, right? But if you, I mean, you might not find it as distracting, but I mean, it depends on the person. But personally, I don't find it distracting. If I've understood it, I don't read it. Uh-huh. But the great thing about watching an English show, if you're learning English and you have English subtitles on all the time, is that you see, if you don't have English subtitles on, you never know what you've missed, right?
Hmm.
So what you think you understand it, but you don't understand all of it, right? You've missed certain things and you're getting the general gist, but you're not understanding all of it. And basically, the way to learn a language well is to read as much as you possibly can in English. Now, most people don't read now. But if you watch the shows and you read the subtitles, you are increasing your exposure to English. And when you start seeing certain phrases always with the same words, without you realizing it, you start absorbing the language. And this is my feeling. I have a little bit of proof because when my daughters were very small, my daughters are bilingual, but when they were very small, because my husband is Spanish, we always watched things with subtitles in English, really for my husband. But
Hmm.
do you know, Craig, at the age of 8, my children were prolific readers and spellers. They could spell English really well. And the only explanation I have from it is that it was because they'd been watching TV and reading the subtitles all the time.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So it's
Interesting.
an amazing thing because you're actually reading super quickly and your brain, while you're not doing very much, is actually absorbing a lot of English. So I think it's very powerful too. I would recommend English subtitles all the time.
What I definitely wouldn't recommend is watching in English with Spanish
Oh,
subtitles
yes.
or
Uh-huh.
whatever language is your first
Mm.
language, because the temptation only to read will block
Yeah, then you stop
your
listening.
ears. It's very difficult to read and listen at the same time
If
simultaneously.
it's a different language. If it's a different
Also,
language.
if it's the
If it's
same
the same
language, you know
language.
those presentations when people have got lots of text on PowerPoints
Uh-huh.
and they're talking to you and you're trying to read, but
Uh-huh.
you don't know whether to listen or whether to read? It's really difficult
Yeah.
sometimes to read and listen.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, Caroline's got a question.
Uh-huh. She's asked, um, may I ask in which languages do you watch films? Yeah. I watch them in, well, really, I watch English all the time. Occasionally, I watch Spanish things, and I do have difficulty, and I want Spanish subtitles on. Without the
Me
Spanish
too.
subtitles,
Yeah.
I can't follow. a Spanish movie, I have to say. I really
I can
can't. I can
follow. I can follow
follow,
the news, but not movies
yeah,
so
I
far.
can follow the news. I can follow like any kind of documentary, no problem. But a movie where there's lots of dialogue and sometimes background noise, you know, like where
Yeah.
characters speak in a disco, for example, or in a bar. And of
Hmm.
course, usually in movies, sometimes you have accents and you have like old men saying things very quickly. Yeah. Or you have like young gangster types talking slang to each
Slang.
other.
Yeah.
And that I can't catch when it's like that. So those kind of movies, I have to have Spanish subtitles on. And I also watch German movies. And funnily enough, German movies are super easy, but I think that's because I can watch them without subtitles. But I think that's because the German movies they show on Spanish TV are always romantic movies. And I don't know, they all speak slowly in romantic movies. It's not like a gangster movie, you know? I think it
Mm.
depends on the genre as well. If it's like a drama or a thriller or something that's very fast paced, then it's hard without
Yeah.
subtitles, I
Especially
think.
a film that has a very complicated plot,
Yeah.
like a
Uh-huh.
murder mystery, and there's not a lot of action, but there's a lot of speaking, and it's difficult to follow in English. Maybe if you are having problems with your listening, start with films that are very visual, like action films, science fiction, superheroes, Harry Potter. You can follow the action from the images, and the dialogue doesn't confuse you because the plot
Yeah.
is quite obvious.
Hmm. That's right.
Um, what else does Caroline say? The subtitles
Yeah.
are very bad. Yeah, bad translations.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Well, do you know, Caroline, that depends. I think you guys are lucky because most English shows are English subtitled very well. That's my experience. But for example, I watched that Korean series. Did you see that Korean series,
Squid Game.
Craig?
Excellent.
Squid
Yeah,
Game. Yeah.
fantastic.
Now, I don't know what you watched it in, but I remember watching it
Oh,
in
watch
English with English subtitles. And it was, no, we watched it in Spanish with Spanish subtitles. And the subtitles, like I
terrible.
could understand it, but they were terrible. And
Yeah.
then I watched it in English with English subtitles, and the subtitles were also terrible. So they didn't match what the dialogue was saying. And it was very, very frustrating.
Hmm.
But that, so occasionally, if it's really badly done, if the dubbing isn't reflected in the subtitles, it's terrible.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I know what you mean, but I do think that on the whole, most English shows are well subtitled and well dubbed.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Daniel always watches in English with English subtitles. Well done, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. And ever used to watch films with subtitles and audio in English, but changed because very often or many
Mm-hmm.
times she
Very
didn't
often.
understand it. So I'm watching a film in Spanish and subtitles in English. Now I can understand much better. Good. And watch a second time in English.
Oh,
That's good, Eva. And
that's an interesting combination. So you
but it's
watch the
good that you're
movie in
watching more than
Spanish,
once.
and
Yeah.
then you're reading in English because Spanish is not difficult if you're Spanish, is it? So you're listening in your mother tongue, reading the translation in English, and then
Hmm.
watching it again. That's an interesting combination, Eva. I never thought of that one. What
Yeah.
I don't like is when people listen in English and read in Spanish. Because you're reading the language that is familiar to you, you're going to stop listening.
Yeah. You block
But
out
the
the
way
audio.
Eva does it, you won't,
Yeah.
because you can listen to it easily and then read.
So let's
Interesting.
finish with a final question. What are your recommendations for video content? We've already had some very
Hmm.
good recommendations from people watching. And if you're watching the replay, also put your comments on Facebook and YouTube because it will help other people who watch after you to get some good ideas for video content. I don't think there's a lot I'm interested in watching at the moment. In fact, even films I'm getting very, very bored with. So I've been watching a lot of YouTube content. Of course, YouTube has so much content. And if you have a hobby, a pastime that you really enjoy, why not go to YouTube and search for videos in English about your favorite subjects? That's a good way to improve your English and watch video content at the same time.
Mhm. I have a recommendation. We
Let's
watched
hear
a
it.
super show. I can't remember whether it's on Amazon or HBO or Netflix, but we watched a show which is a short series called Inside Man with David
Inside Man.
Tennant. And it's kind of like a thriller, like a bit like it's a thriller. It's very good. So I can recommend that. And
Put
we were
that in the
totally
chat.
hooked. Inside Man. I think there's only about 4 or 5 episodes,
Is
so
it
it was
easy to
nice.
get into?
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Very much. Mhm.
Very cool.
It was good. Jose Antonio's seen it. Well done. And you agree. Yeah, he says he loves it, so that was good. It was great.
Okay. So before we leave you and say goodbye, I did do a podcast with my co-host Reza on 10 TV series to improve your English. So if you are looking for recommendations specifically to improve English and obviously to be entertained, I've put the link in the chat. Go and listen to the podcast. And in the show notes to the podcast, we also mention a lot of extra TV series that are good for your English of all different types of genres. So have a look at the show notes and you'll get some ideas of what to watch for your English.
Mhm.
Okay. Shall we say goodbye? It's time.
Mhm.
Thank you
Time
for
to
what
turn us off, isn't it? You have to turn us off now.
time to go and watch some video content or whatever you
Mhm.
like to do and have a sit back experience.
Mhm. So,
Um, so
yeah, I hope to see you in a couple of weeks' time. I'll be back for the last one this year. In 2 weeks' time,
yes,
we'll
the
have
last
the
one of
last one with me.
2022.
In 2
Mhm.
weeks' time on Wednesday. So be sure to try and come back and see us then, so I can wish you happy Christmas. And my name's Lynn. I'm from putitlikethis.com, and I'm an online teacher. That's my website. You can go there if you're interested in having classes with me. You'll find lots of information there, and you'll see how you can contact me as well.
And my name's Craig. I'm from mansioningles.com. You can study English for free on that website. And if you're interested in a conversation course to improve your English, go to englishmasterclass.net, put your email in the space on the webpage, because if you show interest before the end of the year, you will get this year's price of 117 euros for 12 hours of Zoom conversation practice with me and a small group of students. The price will be increasing next year, but only if you register next year and sign up for the email next year. So if you're quick before the end of the year, you'll get this year's price. So that's if you want conversation live on Zoom over the internet. And with that, we'll say goodbye and thank you for watching. It's been a lot of fun. And
Mhm.
Lynn will be back in 2 weeks. And there will be something next Wednesday. I'm not sure exactly what. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday. It will either be me by myself or with a special invited guest. So we'll see you again soon. And thanks for watching.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.